So here we have the completed version of the Poly61 editor. This is for Poly61s that have had the motherboards upgraded with a Tauntek motherboard which supports full MIDI, CC message editing and sysex dumps. What I've done here is I've attempted to replicate all the parameters of the Poly61 as encoders and some as buttons to speed up access. And then you've got a display which shows you the current patch number and the position it would be in the Poly61. And then you've got saving and menus and a back button here and an encoder to select patches. So typical brass 1 patch. And if you turn the encoder to patch 2, which is strings, you see that the program hasn't changed, it's still 11. So what I've actually done, or what the editor can do, is send all the CC messages, which is about 24, 25, in one go to the Poly61, and the Poly61 just basically updates the patch with all the CC messages. So the Poly61 is acting like a slave to the sound, and all your work is done in the editor, which means that the editor encoders and buttons are always in exactly the right position. So whatever the cutoff is in the patch, the encoder for the cutoff has the right value. So that's basically why you have a master sort of slave configuration. You can change that to be a dumb editor and basically just send program changes to the Poly61, but that means that the editor is out of sync and really it will still edit, but you might have to push a few buttons to make things change. Encoders will be out of position, so your sound will jump very quickly from position to position if you're adjusting an encoder which doesn't really know where it should be. So really it's recommended that you run it in master mode. The encoders are fairly smooth. If you want to turn, say, cutoff, you can see I can adjust that all the way up to 99. There is an acceleration set, so you can adjust it down very quickly. And you can turn the acceleration off as well if you just want single steps, but you just turn it slowly. So you can adjust the encoders to be accelerated or non-accelerated in the menus. And that's about it for how the encoders work. You've got several options in the menus. You can, when you first power this up, obviously the memories are empty, but what you can do is you can go into the menus, set your channel for in, set your channel for out, which is not really necessary because the Poly61 is capable of sitting on different MIDI channels anyway. You've got your encoder type, which basically just allows you to set the encoder in reverse direction if you're really that bothered about it. Encoder speed, no and yes, that should be a yes. That's set. So MIDI parameters. Okay, so MIDI params, set to send params means every time you call a patch, you update the Poly61, and if you set that to no, off, then it only sends program changes. Now if I change a patch, it should, so I'm still in the editor menu. There we go. If we send a patch now, you can see the program is changing. So the editor's now out of sync sound-wise with the Poly61. So really it's always best to leave it in params mode. Next option you've got is set the bank. You can set up to 6 banks in this. There's the, go into that menu, the original RAM bank, which is patches, the 80 original patches. It was 64 in the original Poly61, but the Tauntek holds 80. So you've got 80 patches, and you've got bank 1, another 80, 2, 3, 4, and 4. Sorry, I thought it was 5, but I can make it 5, but it's currently 4. So effectively it is 5 banks. So that's 5 banks of 80 you can store in the editor, and these are stored on an SD card with the next to the processor. The The reason why you have a bank setting here is when you're sending sysex dumps to and from the editor, you can actually store a new patch bank into a different location, so you don't overwrite your factory. So if you have the 80 you're working on as a RAM bank, and then use banks 1 to 4 to select places where you're going to store dumps of other sounds from other people, and you can copy them into your new location. So you can do that. Next option you've got load factory. So basically what that does is, if you say change that to yes, it will load the factory patches into the editor without having any sysex dump or anything. They're stored on the program, and it names them as well, which obviously the Poly61 can't name them, but I've found the original first 60 names or something on the internet and put them in. So you've got names to reference rather than just patch 1, patch 2, patch 3, which is useless. Then you've got aftertouch on or off. This obviously affects incoming MIDI. You can set the aftertouch to just select that on, and that basically will use the aftertouch to modulate the FM. So it basically allows you to give some more expression to your Poly61. So that's what that's for. Turn that off, because obviously I'm controlling it from the 61 itself, which is aftertouch. Then you've got send to 61, and basically what that does is it sends the RAM patches out of here, the editor, into the Poly61 to basically sync the two machines together. So if you've changed a load of sounds in the editor, because this is in slave mode, it doesn't have any patches really. But if you want to leave the editor at home and go to a live gig, and you just want to take the 61, you can send all your patches across, and basically all your patches are there. So what it does is it sends these 80 patches without patch names to the 61, because the 61 doesn't understand patch names. So that basically allows you to do that. Then you've got the next one is send patch. Now what this does, this sends an individual patch over MIDI out of the 61 to a computer with a patch name. So basically if you've got a patch that you want to share with somebody, or someone wants a patch off you, you can use send patch, and that will send that current patch as a sysex message to a PC or another editor, and you can store that in the memory and save it if you want. But it basically just takes the existing patch that's loaded and sends it. And then you've got send all, which is like send patch 1, but it sends all 80 patches as 80 different sysex messages, all with the names embedded as well. So you can dump all of your 80 sounds out of the editor onto your computer for safekeeping with names as well, which of the Poly61 doesn't support, but the editor does. And then you're back to your MIDI channel, and the back button takes you out of the menu. Save button there, push save. You can actually save a patch and rename it as well, and that will obviously be stored on the SD card, and when it's sent as a patch out, it will be sent with it. So that's basically that. You've got a recall facility which allows you to go quickly through the patches. I think I've got 240 loaded at the moment, just as test stuff and demo stuff. You can see anything without a proper name in the higher ranges you just call patch 1, patch 2, well patch 80 or whatever. Basically what it was is, I think on the internet you can only find about 60 of the 88 of the 60, no, about 50 of the 64 patch names. After that they're not available, so you've got to guess what they are. And I think Bob, in his infinite wisdom, in his sysex dump, just copied helicopter to every single one of them past about 50 odd. So you've got 50 odd copies of the, about 20 copies of a helicopter in your load factory. But you could edit them yourself if you wanted to. It's not a big deal. You can change them. So that basically gives you quick access, and you've just pushed the button. It loads the patch up. There's patch 54. Push it again. you can go all the way to the beginning. You can see the name starting to repeat. There we go. Fat brass one. There it is. So that's basically that. So all the parameters are stored and they're all recalled. The only sort of weird parameter is this one, which is the recycle, and basically it just says whether the Poly61 will send the notes in order or send them in a round robin. It's not really to do with the sound, it was just available as a parameter to store, so I've added it in. Other than that, you've got the second LFO there, the first LFO there, the ADSR, the filter, DCO2, DCO1, octave, key track, ADSR mode, LFO2 source or LFO source, and that is LFO source 2, LFO source 1. So that's basically just an option that Bob's added to his code. And you can see every time you push a parameter, the 61 updates, so you know you do, and the MIDI light flashes, which is the edit. And that's about it. What I might do is build this into the case now and make a nice front panel. Other people can just build a case of their own. It'll work with either way, I guess. Just runs off a simple 5-volt supply, which could be USB, or a power supply, whichever way you want to do it.